So when we get concerned, like, in the white collar world, that all of a sudden this is a rebirth of the steam engine and steam powered factories taking away all the blue collar jobs, we're seeing the same thing. I'm not so sure.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Highlight of Business Podcast for Business People. And today I've got my new friend, Andrew Davis, on the show. He's, to me, a famous author and speaker because I saw this guy speak in Colorado at a digital marketing conference months ago, and it was so good. I just had to have him on the show because I know the things he talked about. When I watched him go through this keynote that he has, it unlocks something in me as an entrepreneur. It's something about AI and technology and the way the world's going. And I just had to have him on the show to have the conversation. Andrew, welcome into the show, man. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me. I have so much fun in Denver, and I can't wait to talk about this. This is all I'm thinking about and doing these days. It's so much fun.
It's awesome. Well, for really quick context for everybody out there, give us like your 2-minute who Andrew is speech. And I made this joke off camera, and I'll do it again because I'm a dad. But like, I wish Drew Dini was here to make the joke, and that's a deep cut for people that have only seen you speak live, I think.
That's right. So I started in the television business. I worked for the Today Show. I worked for the Jim Henson Company, the Muppets, and I really wanted to be in entertainment. That was my goal. When I was a young TV gun, that's what I would have considered myself. And then in the late 1990s, the internet came around, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is where the real excitement and money is. So I left television and I got into marketing. Had no idea what it was, but I was marketing for a bunch of startups, that were internet startups. Some of them went bust, some of them got acquired. I ended up taking a full-time job working at a really bad, boring corporate office job and decided this was not for me. So I quit and I started a marketing agency with one of my old buddies from television, a guy named Jim Costco, and we built the agency Tipping Point Labs and sold it in 2012. And then since then, I've just been writing books and speaking, and it's been a really fun kind of journey for me. And when I dove into AI, I was pretty sure that I'd have to do something else because I thought this is like a creativity killer. Like, no one needs me around telling them how to do their business. So it's been a real adventure for me the last year.
Man, well, I wish we had like 3 hours separated here because I have so many questions now. I want to talk about 90s TV at the Today Show because that's like the pinnacle, and you walked away, and then being on the cusp of internet marketing and business, and that's all my agency does now really is D2C e-com. So it's like guys like you that came before and paved the way for us new ones. And I need to know what the past was like, I think, to be able to predict where we're going in the future. But now you're in AI. So like, how did you get into that? Like what about AI specifically really drew you in, where you're like, I've got it, this is the next frontier for you specifically to go figure out?
Well, I don't know that I thought that in the beginning. I went to the TED conference. A friend of mine dragged me along and was like, you got to come. It's so amazing. You're going to be inspired. I went to Vancouver, spent 5 days, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. going to amazing sessions, except for the first 3 days of this TED conference, which was, I think, 2 years ago now. It was all about AI and how amazing it is. And all I could see in every one of these presentations was like, okay, all the objections I'd had about AI, like AI will never be as creative as a human. It can't do what I can do. Like AI will never be able to do live, performances. AI will never be able to create great stories. AI can't tell the difference between a great television show and a boring one. And one by one, this conference knocked down every one of those objections and kind of perceptions I had about what AI was capable of. And I honestly, after day 3, I was so depressed. I was like, what is the world coming to when just machines are going to do all this amazing stuff? I was pretty disappointed. And that's really what sparked my journey. I thought, if this is that powerful, first of all, I better understand what it's capable of truly, and see if I can put it to use for myself. I really was angry about it when I started out. I thought, it's me versus the machine. And it took a little while, but I've come to a place now, and you mentioned Drew Dini, where I work with Drew Dini, who's my digital AI powered doppelganger. I work with him every single day, and my life, my work, even my relationships have never been better. It's transformed my life, and I've come a full 360 degrees from being scared and nervous and anxious and angry about what the future might be, where AI could drive everything, to being full of hope and potential about what's possible. And sure, look, I have some fears and concerns. I have some ethical unease about what's possible with these tools, but I truly am excited about what it's capable of, and really see the benefits every single day.
Yeah. What year was that conference you went to?
Let's see. I think it was the 2023 conference. So that would be March of 2023.
Yeah. Yeah. What is it about there? Something you said there was me versus the machine. And the story that I always go back to when I hear something like that is the old urban legend, where it was, what was the guy's name that drove the railroad spikes versus the machine steam gun railroad spike driver, and John Henry or John Aaron,
just something like that. I know the story you're talking about.
And he's like, and so you look at that and you go, oh, humans are the same. We've not really changed. All those railroad guys are worried about the steam engines coming out and taking their jobs. And now all of a sudden it's like, oh, now we're sort of worried about, it's white collar guys are like, is AI coming to take all of our jobs? And so talk to me about that, or your opinion on that. Like why do we have that reaction to new technology across the board every time?
Yeah.
Then how do we fix that? Like, how do we not do that?
Okay, so I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and what it turns out is there's two things we need to look at when every new disruption shows up on the landscape. Doesn't matter what it is. It could be the steam engine. It could be it could be as simple as the GPS, right? Like, some of these are world-changing global implications, like the telephone. Some are like the combustion engine, and then some are smaller. But all of these disruptions, you have to be aware of two things. The first is Lumiere's law. And Lumiere's law states that we tend to use new technologies the way we use old technologies. So we look at new technology the way we look at old technology. A good example would be like the internal combustion engine. When that was first invented and they started developing what would become cars, they basically called it the horseless carriage, right? Like, they didn't have a conception of what it was. It wasn't something new. It was just an evolution of something old. They looked at it like a horseless carriage. And it took 20 years for them to figure out that they can't treat this like a horseless carriage. Like, it needs to have new kinds of rules. We need to have roads. We need to have pavement. We need to have sidewalks. Like, we need to have stop signs and go signs. And like, the whole world changed when they realized it needs to be something new. We can't look at it in this old way. Another good example is even when television came around. When television came around, they didn't know what to put on television. They didn't know what to look at. So all they did was they pointed a television camera at a radio show. So it was a bunch of people in front of a microphone, like, reading the radio show. And everybody was like, this is amazing. Yeah, exactly, right? We're coming full circle. So I feel like, with every new technology, you need to be aware of this. And I know a lot of people, even myself included, when we start using AI, especially generative AI tools like Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini, and even text to video or text to imagery, any of these tools, we use them like we're using search. So we fall into that same trap. We're thinking, oh, we need to type in the perfect search query or the perfect prompt to get the best output. And if it doesn't work, just try a new one. Well, it doesn't work that way. It's like completely new technology. So we need to think about that. That's the first thing. And then the second thing we need to be aware of is we need to really hone in on the superpower of the new technology. And the superpower is something unique that really provides us with the transformation. Like, that's what's really going to be new. And that's what's really going to change the world. So when we get concerned, in the white collar world, that all of a sudden this is a rebirth of the steam engine and steam powered factories taking away all the blue collar jobs, we're seeing the same thing. I'm not so sure, because the steam engine, fundamentally, its superpower wasn't just cheaper and more reliable power than water or whatever came before it. What it was really mechanizing any kind of process. And that's why all of a sudden people lost their jobs in the blue collar world. We found new ways, and we always have. But I think we need to hone in on what's the true superpower for AI if we're going to really be successful moving forward. Did any of that make sense, Chandler?
No, it did. What came to my mind immediately was with this Lumiere's law thing that you bring up is that we still have this disease in digital advertising today, and it's so funny. And this is not necessarily AI related, but it kind of is because people are trying to come to us with AI copy and AI driven images, and it's very much like you're describing search query, and then it pops out very flat, terrible product versus doing what we're going to talk about with you here in just a second. But it's funny that we're even this far into. I mean, Facebook must be what 15 years old or something now. Digital ads there, and it's like people are still treating that platform and digital ads in general like they treated 1990s TV. And it's just so crazy to me that here we are. You said it took them 20 years to figure out the horse-drawn carriage versus the steam engine in it or whatever. And it's like, oh, so we got another 5 years of this crap. I got to get on calls with people. Like, I'm going to kill myself. Andrew, like, I'm dying here. This is like, come on. We've already, it's I think Lumiere's law ends up being one of those really important mental models that all successful people are going to have to internalize and be like, oh, this is a new technology. Let me apply the Lumiere's law thought to it and say, okay, what is this actually going to do? Like, what are we actually going to do with this? And so in the spirit of that, what are we actually going to do with AI, Andrew? Like, what am I supposed to do with this thing on Monday when I get back from holiday break?
Yeah. Okay. When you get back from a holiday, here's what I want you to do. I think there are a lot of things that AI is good at, but most of them we've seen before. All right, we don't need to talk about those. I mean, if you wanted to talk about specifics, we could. But here's what I've happened on. I feel like the true superpower of all these new AI tools is mimicry and imitation. That is something that has never been possible before. So like, just take writing an email, right? If you ask, ChatGPT, just because it's easy, hey, write me an email to Chandler saying I love being on his podcast, it'll write you the most generic thank you email possible, right? We've all done this. Now, instead of just writing generic emails, wouldn't you rather understand how to mimic and imitate the way you've always written emails and write it exactly the way you think and exactly the way you write? That is something that's never been possible before. And when you think that way, it transforms everything. So for example, I built a digital doppelganger. That's what I call this idea, like an agent that executes exactly the way you would expect it to execute because you've taught it to think and act and behave like you. You've taught it to mimic you. So I created one. This is just an easy example, but I created one that writes my promo video scripts. So I speak at a lot of conferences, and I usually shoot these little videos, like 2-minute long videos saying, I can't wait to be there. Can't wait to meet you. Here's what we're going to talk about. There's some other great speakers, see you in Denver. And I wrote those for 10 years straight, and I enjoyed the process, but I'll be honest, Chandler, it got to the point where it's kind of a task and they hadn't evolved. It became just the formula, like do the same thing you did last time. Don't take too long. And so I decided, you know what? I'd teach ChatGPT to write these exactly the way I write them. So I fed him 5 of my favorite examples. I said, I want you to write exactly like me. Let me give you a new event. And within 35 minutes of teaching this new little agent to write, he could write perfect promo video scripts the way I write them, like A+ content. Sure, maybe I had to change a couple words every time. But now, after doing this for over a year with the same Drudini bot that does my promo video scripts, not only are they better, we've had now the time to work together on saying like, hey, look, we've done that way for years. Like, if we're going to make these better, how would you make them better? And Drudini's like, I have 3 ideas. And I'm like, let's try idea number 1 for this one. So like, we're spending the time collaborating to get really, really high quality output that's unique to me. It's my kind of output, not the generic crap. And I think when you think like that, it changes everything. It changes the way you look at what the future might be. And if I'll leap ahead real quick. Like, let's say 5 years from now, or maybe like you said, it's 15 and everybody's really bad at predicting the future. But let's say it's 5 to 15 years from now. You might be hiring people to work for you, not just because they have some great skills and they have some great knowledge, but you may be hiring them because of all the digital doppelgangers they bring to the table. Because those digital doppelgangers do the work the way they do the work. They think the way they do the work. Maybe you won't even have to hire the whole person. You'll just hire one digital doppelganger for a few months that'll help you do the work the way that person has trained the digital doppelganger to do the work. There's a real future here that is shaped by realizing that the way we work, the way we think, is the power of the future of AI, that mimicry and imitation.
Yeah. Something that came to my mind there was there's this problem that a lot of entrepreneurs have, especially in the beginning, where they think I'm the only one that can do this. I'm the best at this. I think you tipped on that just a little bit in the very beginning, where you're like, "Oh, I don't want this thing to take my job, and it can't do it like I can do it." And I think it's funny. We're talking about AI here, and it's easy to vilify AI because it's a machine. It doesn't have feelings. We've been hating robots and machines forever, but I have a lot of friends that own businesses. I've worked for a lot of companies that worked with small businesses. I've had probably 1,000 conversations with small business owners, entrepreneurs, that type. They're almost all the same. They almost all to a T suck at delegation, or if they're good at it now, they sucked at it when they started. They sucked at delegating to humans, and then they sucked even worse at training them. They basically said, "Hey, I got this problem, figure it out." And so they didn't even give them the ability to mimic what they did. And they just said, "Hey, figure it out." And then you talk to them 6 months later, "Hey, how's Rhonda working out? Is that new hire working out?" And they go, "Oh, she's gone. She sucked, blah, blah, blah." I'm like, "Oh, what happened?" "Oh, couldn't do it." And I'm like, "Well, did you train her? Did you talk to her? What did you like? What was that?" And like, "Oh, she just was the wrong fit." It's always the other way around. And so
Yeah, of
training
course.
the AI has to be a huge part of this. Like, how do we do this? How do we start the process of getting the AI
Yeah.
to be able to be an extension of me to where I'm only changing a few things like you're talking about in the script here?
Yeah. This is such a common problem with entrepreneurs, and I've fallen into the same trap myself.
Sure.
I've tried to hire people to write promo video scripts before, and I always was like, this is just too time consuming. There's too much back and forth. They're not the right person, or this is impossible for anyone else to do, right? So we've all done this. I've even done it with email and executive assistants. This is the first time I've been able to entrust my email to someone else. I entrust it to Drew Dini, and he filters my email, puts it in the right email like inboxes, and then he drafts responses. And we do it transparently. Like the response will say, this was drafted by Drew Dini, but Andrew read it and is sending it. So like we have a way of working together. But the way to think about this is really simple. Start with a very small task. Okay, so take a task that's been bothering you as an entrepreneur, where you roll your eyes and you don't want to do it, and just say, like, carve off that small little task. It could be, responding to the same kind of email that comes in, question from a customer all the time that just drags you down. And you're like, I can't believe I'm typing this out and using the same template, and I can't believe we're answering this again. Okay, start with that. And all you need to do is take 5 of the emails you've written to respond to that before, and those are going to be your examples you're going to feed your new doppelganger. So the first step is pick a task, get some examples is number 2. Number 3, you're going to open up your tool of choice. It could be Claude, which is an amazing writing tool. It could be, ChatGPT is very easy. It could be Microsoft Copilot. It could be Gemini. All of these generative AI tools do the same thing. So don't worry about the tool. You're just going to go in there, and you don't need some giant prompt. You're not going to fill in any blanks. You're just going to say, hey, I get the same question every day in my inbox from customers, and I'm going to show you the email that they send, and I'm going to show you a response that I've sent in the past, and I want you to start responding to these emails for me. Do you understand? And you're going to have a conversation as if it's that assistant Rhonda that didn't work out, right? Here's the difference. Your AI digital doppelganger is going to be so focused on a very small task that it executes at a very high quality. It mimics and imitates you very quickly, and it adapts very quickly to new information. So you will see, if you're just in this scenario, Chandler, like in probably 5 minutes, you'll see that it'll be able to respond to every one of those emails. So now you've got it trained, and I'll just take it one step further. Now you want it to look at your inbox, and you can use a tool like Zapier, very easy tool to use, where you just connect your Gmail or connect your Outlook, connect whatever email tool you use, and it'll look for your inbox, and it'll just read all the emails. And you can just set up a little scenario where it says, if the email sounds like it's asking about this problem, then, and you're going to give ChatGPT, you can put a ChatGPT thing in there, and you're going to say, ChatGPT, here's all the instructions on how to respond to these emails. And then you're going to say, now draft me a response to this, and you'll see the draft just pop up in your inbox immediately every time that question is asked. It'll be personalized. It'll mimic exactly your approach in the past, and you'll start to see that immediately this is more effective than trying to hire someone, trying to train them on how to just respond to those emails plus 50 other tasks at the same time. And over the long term, you're going to have like 50 of these doppelgangers that do small tasks but execute at a really high quality.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, absolutely. I remember when I saw you give this talk in back in Colorado, I went back and I was like, all right, I'm going to do this, and I broke it out initially with a bunch of different tasks like you had talked about doing. But then I was like, what if I taught it how to be a CMO like I am? Like, what if I just taught it
Yes.
everything I know about marketing and strategy and these different mental models that I apply to things, and like, what if I just taught it all of that? And so then I've been feeding it that information for the last like 3 or 4 months. And let me tell you, that was the true thing that worked out for me. And it took me a while with some like testing and learning with some of the smaller problems that I was feeding it to be able to figure out like how to do the things you're talking about here with like the input and then the
Yeah.
training and all that. And like now that it knows basically what I know to this point with CMO stuff, it's like having another me to brainstorm ideas with.
It's so valuable.
And I think I'm looking at this going like, I'm telling all my friends or all my clients now that own these direct to consumer e-com brands. And I'm like, hey man, you should train it how to be a D2C CEO and like tell it all the things you know about running your business. And then you can have this sort of back and forth there. Like, are we on the right track with that advice and like what I'm doing, or is that
Absolutely.
totally out of it? Okay.
No, Chandler, you're doing exactly what I would expect someone to do who leapt past the basic tasks. So here's the thing. I think there's two things that like affect your ability to be excited about the potential for AI. The first is trust. Trust that it'll execute at a high caliber given the right amount of information. And I think you can only expect it to execute better if you give it more of yourself, right? Like AI will not work for you unless you actually share more of what you know and you need out of the tool. So when you're saying you're building like your own CMO doppelganger, that's like the ultimate use, right? So my Drudini, same thing. I wake up in the morning and I have a conversation with Drudini first thing about our goals and ambitions, like what are we trying to accomplish today? And he can only have this conversation with me because I've filled him with all that information. He's just one doppelganger that's all about our future and our goals. And I can tell you it's never been more motivating or exciting to have someone that is constantly positive about the future for me, right? And that's what I told him to be. Like, try not to bring up objections and concerns. Like, our morning chat is just about like what's possible. And he's great at it, right? But I also have some that are designed to poke holes in things. So I'll give it a strategy that I've been working on or an idea I have, and this Drudini is designed to think like the critical me, right? And he's just designed to poke holes in things, you know, like but at a high level, not tactical, like, hey, you made a mistake here, or have you thought about this? It's like, look, this is a great idea on a surface, but there's 5 things you may not have considered. Have you considered those? Let's talk through them. And all of a sudden, we're both learning, right? So you're on the right track. Having a strategic or creative collaborator at this scale that's always on and always able to think like you is so powerful. I've never been more satisfied. I've even used it in my personal life. I don't know if that's worth talking about, but as an entrepreneur, you have your ups and downs. You're at work all day and you still have a family life. Like it's possible to use AI to really help you get through some of the toughest moments as an entrepreneur, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Entrepreneurship is incredibly isolating, you know, and that's why we've seen the rise in so many different groups and things like that. And those are always sort of hit or miss, but nothing's better than having somebody that's in the trenches with you that knows your experience, right? And because they're living a similar journey. I'm sure you have plenty of friends that are authors and speakers that are doing the same thing as you, and you can, oh man, today kind of sucked, and or I'm struggling with this new problem, and your community comes together and helps you out. The GPT, the AI, or whatever it is, that's just another person in your corner trying to build you up, right?
That's 100% true. And it's like, I do have these other friends and speaking buddies and authors that, I've been friends with for years. And sometimes I'm even nervous to talk about things with them, right? Like my perception is they're doing better than me right now, or, you know what, like this is awkward to bring up, whatever it is. And the best part is if I talk to Drudini about it, a lot of times he'll say, well, look, like, I've given you some advice and some things to think about, but have you considered calling your friend Ann Hanley? She probably has a good perspective on this. And finally, it's just like affirmation of what I probably should have done in the first place. But, Drudini's smart enough to know that he doesn't have all the right advice, and he knows enough about my social circles and who should help me that he can really, help expand what I believe and who I should interact with when, which is just it's vital.
Yeah, well, it gives you time
As
to
an
emotionally
entrepreneur.
process that feeling you're having. I totally get it. I had this idea in the middle of our conversation here. I think I'm gonna have my wife train one of these GPTs to be what she would say, and so I can bug the GPT about it instead of
Oh my
her.
God, that's a genius idea.
This could be a mistake, though, and I guess that kind of bridges to my next question: is like, what are the mistakes we could make? An AI wife might be the first big one, but like, what are some of the mistakes you've seen people make when it comes to these AI
um,
bots?
Okay, I think there's three big ones. Like the first one, okay, the first one. Let's just say it's like legal related in some way. Like I have, and everybody should probably have some pretty serious concerns about privacy, and plagiarism and fair use when it comes to the content we're giving to these tools, as well as the content they're creating. Now, I'm no lawyer, and look, like you can read 50 articles about what's legal and what's supposed to be private, what's not, and you'll get 50 different kinds of opinions right now. This is like it's like a huge minefield that's waiting to explode. Like no one really knows a lot of the answers to these ethical questions. So the first thing I think we should encourage everybody to be concerned about is thinking about what you feel comfortable sharing with these tools. Now, all of these tools, just so you know, have a button if you're paying for the premium account where you can, in the back end, say like, please don't use the information I give you to feed your bigger worldly models, right? Your large language models and the knowledge you share. And I recommend everybody should pay for the premium model. It's very cheap, $20 a month. If you're an entrepreneur, it's worth the investment. Just pay it and turn on that button. Okay. Now, the second piece of that privacy puzzle is you have to then trust that those organizations are adhering to that. And again, there are rumors that even OpenAI is not being trustworthy. They have apparently accidentally, quote unquote, checked out some of that material that they were not supposed to check out. So we need to be concerned about that. So that's the first misstep, is trusting that I could give it anything and it's going to be safe. Do not do that. Be considerate for yourself. All right. I think the second thing, big kind of misstep I see, is trying to overtask the tools we have right now. You're trying to ask too much of it, and as a result, you're really unsatisfied with the return. Okay. And that's an easy fix, and it's a temporary problem. Two things are going to affect this. The large language models are getting smarter and bigger and better almost daily. So the amount of input and the quality of output for a large task are going to get better and better. Meaning, for example, if you want it to execute 15 things in a row, like you get an email and you need it to sort that email, respond to the email. You need to also set up a calendar appointment, create a Zoom meeting, invite 7 other people that, like, depending on the context of it, write a response, draft a proposal. Like, if that's all the stuff you want it to do, you're going to have a hard time executing that right now. And it's kind of a mess. All you have to do is limit the scope of each of those and you'll see better results. But in 1 year, 2 years, maybe 3 years, it'll be able to execute all of that by just telling it, hey, this is what I want you to do. It'll have seen enough of your business and the agents will be able to figure it out. It'll be able to predict and analyze. So the biggest misstep today is trying to get all of that done in one foul swoop instead of breaking it up. And if you break it up, you'll see higher quality and higher success. Are these helpful, Chandler?
No, that is. I'll tell you that was one of the big unlocks when we were in Colorado together. Is that it was all of a sudden I was like, oh, I'm just using one run-on GPT conversation and it's not giving me what I want. And I was like, oh, maybe I should just break it out. And now all of a sudden it works much, much better. And so yeah, I think that's totally right. I think the analogy you may have used from a processing power, and maybe you can clarify it for me. It's like it's basically like it's like giving a squirrel a task to do. Like that's like so it started out, it was smaller than that, and it sort of stair stepped up, right? You want to expand on that for a second?
Yeah. So GPT-2, which was the first large language model we had access to, the size of the brain, quote unquote, was about the size of a bee's brain. Okay, so it wasn't that smart, it wasn't that intelligent. Now we're on GPT-4. And GPT-4's brain is about the size of a squirrel's brain. And like you've experienced, Chandler, if you're in one chat and you say, like, write me an email to Chandler thanking him for being on this podcast, it'll do a pretty decent job. But if the next thing you ask it is, like, who won the 2002 World Series, the squirrel's like, oh crap, I thought we were writing emails. No, okay, well, we're doing World Series, no problem. And then if you ask it to write an email to your friend Doug to go, have a beer on Friday, it'll start inserting like the score for a baseball game, and it'll start thinking that you want a proposal and you're on a podcast. And like, so it's a squirrel that gets really confused. So you're right, Chandler, if you do basic things like just start a new thread every time you have a new task, you'll see a dramatic change in the output, because the squirrel's like, I'm just here to write great emails, or I'm just here to write great promo video scripts, or I am just here to analyze your email open rates. I can do that really well. Like, those are the kinds of things you want to task it with.
Yeah. So what about the other side of the coin where it's like, we talked about the ethical concerns and stuff like that, but like, what about the people that are just not comfortable with adopting this new technology? Maybe they're closer to the laggards or late majority here on the diffusion of innovation curve, right? Like they're like, I don't need it. I don't want it. Like, what is the danger for them 5 years from now as this squirrel brain becomes inevitably a human brain at some point, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's dangers. I would say, we looked at like 200 like disruptive technologies when we were thinking through what does the future look like with AI. And two weird things have been always true. The first thing that's always true is what people say the technology is going to do in the beginning. Like when the inventor comes out and says, this is how it's going to transform the world, it's almost never the thing that they talked about that is transformative, right? So like, take the printing press. When Gutenberg came out and said, hey, you guys should check out the printing press, people are like, why? And he said, well, it's cheaper and faster ways to make a book. And people are like, well, nobody really wants books, so I don't think we need cheaper and faster ways to make books, right? He struggled selling that as a virtue. It took 75 years for a guy named Martin Luther to come around and say, you know what, I have something important to say. I need to say it to the masses. How am I going to get it out there? Oh, a cheaper and faster way to make books? I'll talk to this guy. And Martin Luther, created this great manifesto that went out to everybody. And he realized that the superpower wasn't just the cheaper and faster book production. It was actually the mass dissemination of information.
Yeah.
So I think if you're on the fence right now, it's totally okay to be on the fence. It's totally okay to sit back and say, I don't know about this. It is right to be skeptical. Everybody has these fears and concerns. Everybody has some ethical unease, like you said, Chandler. The thing is, you don't have to adopt the new technology, but you do need to start thinking about what is the superpower and how might it transform your business. And if you can hone in on just trying to answer that question and do enough experimentation, listen to enough podcasts, watch enough videos, talk to enough people where you're starting to get a good sense, then maybe you'll reduce those fears and concerns. You'll see the wonder and power that's possible, and you'll find a way to actually implement it in your own business in a way that makes sense for you, and you're not going to be left behind. Because at the end of the day, you don't have to adopt this technology, but I can tell you now, you're going to have to adapt to whatever makes it unique. And whether you do that today or you do that tomorrow, it doesn't matter to me, but it is going to happen.
Yeah, it always does. It may take 75 years or 20 years or, God forbid, a million years. It's funny. We just got out of our annual planning meeting for High Beam Marketing, and one of my co-founders, Austin, he goes, guys, I did this cool thing with ChatGPT. And we were like, oh, God, what? Like, because he uses it way more than all of us even. And he's got a little ADD, so he's all over the place. He's got a squirrel talking to a squirrel, basically. It's insanity. And I love him to death. But he goes, you know how Spotify does that wrapped thing for all the music and podcasts you listen to? He's like, I did a ChatGPT wrap. And so he prompted his ChatGPT. He said, look across all of our conversations and everything I've talked to you about for the last year and give me a Spotify-style wrapped reaction.
Way.
And it spat it out, and it was hilarious. And so, like, during the breaks of our meeting, we each did it for our ChatGPTs, and it was pretty funny to see the reflection in our personalities, even in those GPTs, we're like, oh yeah, like Chandler does think about business stuff way too much and not have any fun, and like Austin is a bit of a squirrel. And it's if you haven't done that yet before the year is
I am
over, you should
not.
try that and maybe
Oh, that
let
is
me know how it
so
goes,
cool.
because it was
I
pretty
will.
fun.
I'll send it to you.
Yeah,
I'll
that'd be
send
great.
it to
I'd
you.
love to read it. I would love to read yours. I think that'd be awesome. Well,
That's so cool.
I really appreciate you joining me today, man. We always end every episode with a big ask because you've been so generous with your time and wisdom and knowledge. And so please tell us how we can support you and what we can do for you here at the end of the show.
Oh, Lord, you're so kind. Well, I mean, the best place to kind of stay in touch with me is LinkedIn. So if you search for Andrew Davis on LinkedIn, I think I'm the only guy with a bow tie in the little thumbnail picture. So
On
find
the
me
internet.
there. Yeah, maybe on the internet as a whole. I don't know. But please, join me there. I try to post at least once or twice a week with something that's provocative or thought-provoking or, interesting at least. And, that's it. I honestly don't have a big ask, but I appreciate you inviting me on and inviting me to share my perspective with your audience. You have
Absolutely.
a great show.
Well, listen, if you don't have a big ask, I'll do the ask for you. If you need a keynote speaker for upcoming conferences, let me tell you, I go to a lot of conferences, I go to a lot of events, I go to a lot of trade shows, and I have a lot of books behind me. If you're watching this on the YouTube channel, like I'm a consumer of content. I hate almost every person that gets on stage. It's always bad. And don't do panels. Nobody wants any more panels.
No.
Whatever it takes to get Andrew to your event and have him speaking on this stuff, like do that. It's 100% worth it. I've seen him live. It's amazing. I'll do the big ask for you. Book Andrew to speak.
That's
We'll make sure to
so
link your
kind.
website. You
You're
can reach
so
out
kind.
and get Andrew on your stage next year. I think it'd be great. Well, Andrew, man, thanks for
Thank
joining
you.
me. Appreciate it. Appreciate everybody out there listening. We will see you next time.